can't even compete against their budgets or anything, or their creative. Or can I? So here's the thing. You pick one of these mediums, you find a really cheap ass way of doing something very small, and you get creative with the medium, and you get creative with amplifying it so it looks like you spend 20 times more than what you actually spend. And then poof, you look much bigger than you are. So how do you do this on Super Bowl? Well, on Super Bowl, it turns out that when you all are watching a game, the ads that you see in the break between the third and fourth quarter, some of them are served from the national inventory. Some of them are served from a local regional, city or county inventory. Now, the experience is the same. Now, everybody who's kind of in marketing knows that to buy the national spot in the Super Bowl is crazy expensive. I think last year it was like $7.5 million for one 30-second spot. 30-second spot. And that's before you start spending money on your creative. Now, most companies that buy that spot, they're going to spend a few more millions on getting a superstar and a fancy production company. So you could end up spending $15 million on that one 30-second commercial, which is wild, right? Now, I don't know any startup who has that budget. I definitely did not have it myself. But turns out I could buy regional media for like 5 and 6 figure numbers. So I ended up looking at where are most of my prospects and customers. Well, they're here in the San Francisco Bay Area. They're in New York, then Chicago. Each of those areas is like, oh, for 100K, I can get New York, or 200K, I can get San Francisco. I got Seattle for 75K. So I buy this puzzle of territories that I care about because, look, guys, I love potatoes just like anyone. But if I'm going to air my Super Bowl commercial in Idaho, it's only the potato growers that are going to be watching it. There's very little tech there. Why would I spend my money on the national spot for the potato growers in Idaho? I love
message.
There you go. So I ended up spending a minuscule amount of money compared to the national spot on just buying 2 or 3 regions that I wanted. And then I created a creative for the commercial using a company who'd never done a Super Bowl commercial before, but I did some successful videos with them. So I took a chance on them. They took a chance on me. They gave me a really decent 5-figure price. Yeah, not 7-figure in the millions, but 5-figure. I paid less than $100 for that first Super Bowl commercial creative. We shot the commercial, we aired it in 3 regions, and then I amplify it across our social media and mobilized every Gong employee, or Gongsters as we call them, to amplify it to our audience. And then people went wild. They're like, what? Gong just did a Super Bowl commercial? So I don't care about the few people who actually saw it on TV. It's when we amplified it on social media and everywhere else, people are like, damn, this has got to be a real big company. And then guess what? I listened to the Gong recordings of calls during the week after Super Bowl, and I heard hundreds of people come in and say, hey, you know, I'd heard about Gong before. I was kind of on the fence, but then I saw them on the Super Bowl. I'm like, okay, I need to check these guys out. And then they took a demo.
You know who loves you? I know the sales team love you. The sales guys love you, Udi.
They really did. Saw a lot of business from that week.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That Monday morning coming in there, a lot of emails, a lot of, hey, can we get back on
a very hot
this week?
You know, we in our first Super Bowl commercial in 2021, at the end of the week, my CFO came to me, said, Udi, do you realize we just broke our all-time record of pipeline creation in 1 week? That's what happened on Super Bowl week.
Once again, attribution. How are you tracking that, right? Because it's not like they're raising their hand saying Super Bowl ad, right? Did you have a
some of them are, but that's a really good question. So here's what I did. I did 3 things, really, 3.5. So first, while everyone was watching the game, that to this day I couldn't even tell you which teams were playing, I was refreshing my Google Analytics dashboard like the good marketer that I am. I didn't care who's playing on the game. I was refreshing my Google Analytics, and I saw the spike in traffic. I saw the spike in demo requests. And not only during the game, but for the whole week, we had a much higher new baseline of traffic and demo conversions. So that was the first thing I saw. So that's no fluke, right? You know, these are the people who saw the commercial at the exact second that it aired. Boom, you see that spike. 2, I already told you, I used a tracker in Gong. I searched for Super Bowl, and I saw who's talking about it. And I found like 455 calls that talked about Super Bowl. And I could filter them further by who said commercial or ad. So I knew that the right people were watching it, because I didn't know if that bet is going to pay off or not. But I could listen to people on the call saying, hey, I saw you all on the Super Bowl. I came and asked for a demo. So that was the second thing I did. The third thing was that report on pipeline creation that the CFO came with at the end of the week. And then the last thing I did was I kept tracking that cohort of opportunities and pipeline created in that week. And I looked what happened to them 3 months, 6 months, 9 months later. So by the time it was time to think about asking for budget for next year, I could say, hey, this is the 7-figure revenue number that was created from the cohort that came in that week from Super Bowl.
Oh my goodness.
There it is. You got the first party data. You have the true first party data, and you used it and you executed it exactly the way you needed to do it. So now it goes from being, are we going to take a chance on this thing, to that's a no-brainer.
No.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. For that year, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, we have to do that. Yeah, that
using your tool to actually use it. So I don't know if you guys know, like the Gong actually records the calls. It has automation, tells you like where in the pipeline the deals are, all types of stuff. Like we use it religiously, right? So for you to use that and say, all right, anybody saying Super Bowl, being able to track that, export that, put that in the system, like that's just creative ways of attribution, right? Like that most marketers think of.
It won't show up on the neat dashboards that most marketers use, but I'm not obsessed about them. If something works really well, there are other ways of finding out.
Yeah, we got get some shit. I'm ready to come up with a campaign right now.
You're running out of gas in the air horn, man.
Yeah, right.
I was not expecting this. Wow. Yeah, I was not expecting it.
Story, man.
I wasn't expecting this. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I knew Udi was gonna drop some bombs on us, but I wasn't expecting him to say the things that he said today. Like it just goes to show, like, you know, when you have the right person in the right role and you support that person, what they can do for the company. You said something that was super important too, that we talk about, right? It's going to work and wanting to be there, Udi. Wanting to be there. You made a statement that was like, yo, I go with my kids, we have a bunch of fun, and then when I get to work, the energy, I'm pumped. You see the difference in your work ethic with you having that feeling, versus you going to work like this fucking slave ship. You know what I mean? Like, I do not want to be here. What time is lunch? I know I'm gonna get aggravated. The difference in production is you can't even measure that, right? So I want to say shout out to Gong for again giving you a new position, right? Seeing what kind of asset that you are. They already knew that you were asset, but to keep supporting you and keep enabling you and keep giving you the space and the freedom and the budget to do what you do best, right? Because we've also heard from a lot of execs that come on to say once they get with a company and they start doing so well, they become a threat. They become a threat, right? And you know, your C-suite, but then you know, your CEO or somebody looking at you like, you know, you doing a lot, man. And now let's just say like this, that ad, right? Let's just say Udi did this and Udi did that. Now the calls start coming in specifically for Udi. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, do you want to talk to so-and-so? No, we want to talk to Udi. No, put Udi on the phone.
I'm only one in an army of superstars we have at Gong. We've been very fortunate to not only attract this talent, but also support them and enable them to build their own brands. Nobody at Gong feels threatened by it. They build their brands while they're at Gong. It serves them. It serves Gong. And you know what? At some point, they're going to move on and they're going to take their brand with them. Power to them. All good. All good.
I don't know. I would love to see that non-poaching agreement for Udi. Udi, you got a 10-year non-poaching. 10-year non-poaching.
You know, every employee at Gong gets job offers probably every week. Successful ones, most of them. And it is our job to make them want to stay. Every day they have to choose to stay with us. It's a free market out there. In all seriousness, in California, you can't really enforce those non-poaching agreements. It's
really,
if someone wants to move on, they move on. It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Wow. And I'm no lawyer, so I won't give any legal advice because I can't. The job, the manager's job, the leader's job is to make their employees come to work every day and want to be there. And at some point they move on. You know, I think there were like 5 years that I had this great streak of not a single employee leaving the team, and we kept hiring more and more people. Wow. And it was years before the first one actually walked out and moved on because there were just too many changes and they wanted a new opportunity. But it's an art and a science of how you create a culture that the team is enabled and empowered to do their best work. And I also have a whole chapter on that called Building a Courageous Team in the book, where I interviewed half a dozen of my team members who worked on the team. And I asked them why they came in every day and why they stayed so long and why they were able to produce all this great work. And I took all the lessons that they gave me, which I learned a lot about my team just from asking these questions of my team members. And we put those lessons together so that other teams can go ahead and build their own courageous teams.
Wow. That is amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
So some things I tell the guys is like, right, you should never be pouring from your cup. You should only pour from your saucer. So you're supposed to take the time, fill your cup, and then whatever runs over right into that saucer, that's what you should pour into others. I would love if you could share anything from your saucer to our young people, up and coming marketers, creatives, on how to be in this business. What's some lessons learned? Any advice you can share with them?
Sure. I'll give two. And again, I know there's a variety of people. Some are in tech, some are like influencers doing their own thing. I think that the two important things I would say is, number one, show how you're making sales easier. Show how you're making sales easier. People will give you budget and time and rope to run with ideas and crazy campaigns if you can show how you're making sales easier. It doesn't all have to show up on a neat dashboard. Attribution is a bottomless problem. There's so many ways of showing how you're making sales easier, but if you can show that, they'll keep coming back to you with more ideas, more budget, more requests. So you have to be connected. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's real.
You have to be connected to what sales is doing, understand where their challenges are and how you can help. The second thing is, you've got to have a point of view. Don't wait to be asked. Don't wait to be told what to do. You have to have a point of view. You have to come with the crazy ideas, and then they might get filtered and you won't be able to pull off everything you want. But people love people with crazy ideas that have an explanation or a hypothesis how this is going to make sales easier. And then you try as many of them as you can. And you know what? Some of them are actually going to work.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Yeah.
I got to ask you a personal branding question. This is my last one for me, right? So you empower the sales team to go out there and do their thing, right? They do the performance reviews. They're showing that they're getting higher sales and all that. How should they value their personal brand when they come to the negotiating table? Because we had Devin on. Like, Devin's our guy. So Devin was one of those guys from Gong that took it. He's got his personal podcast, is doing great. Man, he's a great dude. That's our brother. But like how do you evaluate that when you're talking to a company? You're still in a company. You're doing sales. You're showing pipeline. You're making sales easier. You got your brand, but how do you put that into an actual dollar figure when you negotiate?
So I don't have a formula for putting a dollar figure on it, but LinkedIn gives you some information, and the third-party tools that allow you to get even more detailed information, like who your followers are. Are they in sales? Are they in marketing? Which geographies they're at? Which industries they're at? And depending on the platform and followers you have, that's exactly the audience that some companies are looking for. And if you can show that a match, say, Devin, I forget what number he has, maybe 100,000 followers, maybe more, and they're in sales and marketing, he can show that breakdown. And if he's coming to a young startup that has like 4 followers, including the CEO's wife and mother on the page, and Devin comes with his 100 or 200,000 followers in that exact space, that's got to be worth money to the company. So that's how we'll get the conversation started.